Good morning and welcome to the first episode of Coffee with Katie. Good morning. So Coffee with Katie is going to be taking place on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific time every week. Every week there will be a different topic, always time for Q&A and for you guys to put questions in the comments and I'll try to answer them the best that I can. Now for today's topic, we are going to talk all about the women's menstrual cycle and how our hormones affect working out, energy, nutrition, and how we can make our menstrual cycle work for us, not against us. So how many of you are familiar with the women's menstrual cycle and the different phases? I'm gonna pull something up here. So if you're just tuning in, grab your coffee, and we are talking all things hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and how it affects working out, nutrition, and energy. So the first thing that I want to, talk to you guys about is if you haven't read this book yet or picked it up, go pick it up now. Roar by Stacy T. Sims. Stacy is a triathlete and the book is definitely this book is definitely a bit more triathlon and Ironman kind of specific focused, but it has a lot of good information for anyone who is an active woman who hikes, runs, CrossFit, strength trains, does yoga, whatever it is. Go get this book right now to learn a little bit more about how our hormones affect all these different areas of our life. So today I want to dive in because I'm curious, how many of you have struggled with, good morning, Christina. You have a fabulous day too. Have any of you ever struggled with menstrual cramps? Do you ever have times where you're like, man, that sleep really sucked? Or I don't know why I'm so tired all the time. Oh my gosh, I am so hungry I could eat a cow. Whatever it is, sometimes we have these moments where we say, yeah, I'm so tired and I don't know why. But the first place to look into is your menstrual cycle. Is where are you at? Where are your hormones? Where are your estrogen levels? Where are your progesterone levels? So I'm pulling up, I kind of have a little slide cue here that I want to pull up. But what I want to dive into is starting with kind of the basics of the menstrual cycle. So if you're, we learn about this in 5th grade and then maybe again in health class in high school, and then we kind of get left behind. On top of that, we often learned in those classes just like the basics, but only in recent times has there been a lot more research, scientific studies that have really dug deep into estrogen and progesterone and their effects on women and why, we have this menstrual cycle. Our bodies are born to carry a child. And so we are so different than men, but most of our lives, a lot of products out there, think about clothes for a really long time. They just made clothes in smaller sizes, but use the same type of measurements, if you will, as men. And so as they started learning more about women, products, clothes, food, working out, all of these things have started to take shape. But even more, there are a lot of lessons I have learned in learning more about my menstrual cycle. I get teased because I'm like, oh, I must be in this phase, or oh, this is why I'm feeling tired. But it doesn't justify it per se, but it explains it. So if you need a nap and you are just dying, you're probably, somewhere in week 3 and week 4. Week 3 is where progesterone and estrogen hit their peak, and then progesterone hits its peak, and then they both start dropping together. Well, so let's go into the 2 phases of the menstrual cycle. You have the follicular phase, which is the first 2 weeks, first 14 days, and then you have the luteal phase, which is the last 14 days. So typically, a woman's menstrual cycle is 28 days long. It varies a little bit from here to there. Now, the follicular phase is when hormones are at their lowest. So that's week 1 and week 2. So week 1 starts the day that you get your period, which is why doctors are always like, okay, when's the day of your last period? That's how they figure out where you are. And those first 2 weeks are where we probably are the most energized. We're on point. We're crushing it. We're witty. We're happy. And even when shit hits the fan, we have a backup plan. We can figure everything out. So the first 14 days of your cycle, you are just getting more and more energized. You are getting more on point. Your mind is with it, and you are feeling pretty stable. The second 2 weeks, the second part of your cycle, 14 days, this is where progesterone hits its peak, and then both estrogen and progesterone start dropping together. And this is where we start to get really tired. We start to get a little cranky. We're more irritable. We are less witty. We can't come up with somebody's name that we've known for a really long time. We got to the grocery store. I mean, there's everyday things happen all the time, but you're more prone to how your brain functions, your energy levels, how much muscle mass you can build, how many calories you're burning, your irritability level. All these things play a role in your hormones. So again, estrogen and progesterone are more than just estrogen and progesterone that work together to help us make a baby, if you will. And when you're not pregnant, you just get rid of it. But it affects us. So our testosterone levels tend to stay the same. Now for men, they go through a 24-hour testosterone cycle. So when men wake up in the morning, that's when their testosterone is at its highest. And when they go to bed, that's when it's at their lowest. So they go through this 24-hour testosterone cycle, whereas women, for 28 to 32 days, we're going through these crazy ups and downs. Probably why men are like, women are crazy. We are, but for a good reason, right? Okay, so let's dive into each week of the menstrual cycle. So week 1, what can you expect? So this is when you get your period, and estrogen is at its lowest, and you're starting to get your mental clarity back. As you go through the week, obviously day 1, day 2 of week 1, you might be having cramps. You might feel a little, maybe you're not hungry. You're still a little bit cranky. But by day 3 or day 4, as your period is starting to come to an end, your energy levels spike, your mental clarity spikes, and you are crushing. You feel like you're crushing life. You are happy. You're a go-getter. You want to go adventure, try new things, do new things. And week 1 is kind of where that all starts. You want to be social, hang out with friends. Okay, week 2. This is where estrogen rises until it peaks. And estrogen is what gets us pumped up. We are like loving life. It also suppresses our appetite. This is Coffee with Katie, so gotta take a sip. I'm having my chai latte though, for those who know how much I love chai. In week 2, testosterone rises and peaks at the end of this week. So we do have these little, our testosterone levels go through very, very small changes as well. But what does this mean then? So I'm going to get into that in a second for what that means for working out, weight loss, building muscle. Week 2, you are your happiest self. Week 2 is when you feel like the best version of yourself. You want to adventure, you have a strong desire for romance, you're full of life, and it would take a lot to get you down in week 2 of your menstrual cycle. But what does this mean when estrogen is high? Well, it means that you are more able to build muscle. So I'm going to get into even more. We're going to break down this menstrual cycle and these hormones into working out, nutrition, and energy in a little bit here. But week 3, this is where progesterone starts to rise. And so what happens is, as progesterone rises, this has a sedative effect. It starts to make you feel a little groggy, a little tired, especially if you're super sensitive to it, as well as you are hungrier. Now, so when you're in week 3, this is where you're like, why am I eating so much? Why am I also tired? So I'm working out less, but I'm eating more. Blame that on progesterone. That is what's going on there. You may find that you also want to stick to home more. You are feeling a little more like you want to do your own thing. And then week 4 is where estrogen and progesterone nosedive together. So they go to their lowest point, and you are just tired, and you are more sensitive to small annoyances. And this is where, typical PMS symptoms start to pop up. So that's kind of the basics of week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Now let's dive into what this means for nutrition behaviors. So week 1, estrogen has a slightly appetite suppressing effect. So when you're in week 1, you might find that you aren't as hungry as you were in weeks 3 and week 4. You also are having a little bit of blood loss though. So you might be feeling a little fatigued, a little foggy still. And so week 1, you might want to, up your iron intake with whether that's whole foods or a supplement. So spinach has good iron in it, for example. Week 2, estrogen continues to rise, and this is where you'll start to, again, notice that you're a little less hungry than usual, but you're also, you are feeling lighter, and you want healthier foods. So week 1 and week 2 are again, crushing life part of your month every month. You are working out, you're energized, and as far as nutrition goes, your appetite is suppressed a bit, and you want to make healthier choices. So always, that's where, I've done some episodes, and probably next week we'll get into habit building, but this is why it's so important to understand the menstrual cycle, because if you're trying to create a habit, let's say you want to eat healthier, but it's week 3 and your body is telling you to eat more, and progesterone is making you feel like is creating cravings for you to eat the chips and the ice cream and things that are more comfort food relating. Well, once you're aware of this, it's easier to then say no, because it's just progesterone talking, and you can start to make healthy choices. So just being aware that progesterone has this craving effect can help you maintain these new habits that you're trying to create. Okay, so week 3, progesterone starts to creep in, and your appetite increases like I was just talking about. So you're going to notice that you're hungrier, snacking more. And this is because your body thinks it might be pregnant. Now, it's not like you're starting to eat, another 1,000 calories a day, but maybe you need another 100, 200 calorie snack. You're more susceptible also to blood sugar drops. So that's why it is important for week 3 to prevent those cravings that you're feeling, to have that $100, $200 or 100, 200 calorie additional snack. Week 4 is where estrogen and progesterone plummet, which leaves you craving more carbohydrate-rich foods. So this is where you are craving the pastas and the comfort food and the chips. And so when you, again, are more aware of how estrogen and progesterone affect you, at least this has been helpful for me, this is why I'm sharing, is once I started to dive in and learn more about how our hormones affect our choices and our behaviors, I started to understand why I was craving the pasta and the chips, and it was easier to say no and just have another, a 200 calorie snack to help prevent those cravings. Or, if I want to give in, then maybe it's choosing still something healthier, like a piece of chocolate, dark chocolate, or as a lot of you know, my favorite is Halo Top. So definitely an ice cream fan over here. Okay, so let's get into how the menstrual cycle now affects working out and our energy levels. So week 1, you are energized. You are crushing all of your workouts. This is where sometimes, especially when I was training for triathlons and Ironmans, I would have this exact feeling. I would have 1 or 2 weeks where I was going strong. I was crushing it. And then suddenly I wasn't. And I was super tired. Now, that could have been from overtraining, but you have to take into consideration your hormones. So, week 1, you are motivated, your mojo is high, and the key to this, though, is that estrogen helps you build muscle. So, when you're in week 1 and week 2 and estrogen is rising, this is the best time to create lean muscle. So you want to be lifting heavier weights to boost your metabolism during weeks 1 and week 2 of your menstrual cycle. Now, week 3 and week 4, when progesterone starts to get in there, you want to focus. Progesterone is more fat burning. So week 3 and week 4, you go into a more fat burning phase with your hormones. And so that is a good time to focus on low intensity cardio. You might want to drop the amount of weight that you're lifting and increase the reps. So being aware of how estrogen and progesterone affect the body can also help you time and plan out your workout routine to get the best results. So again, week 1 and week 2, heavier weights, lower reps, and prioritize strength training. Week 3 and week 4, take it down a notch. Get that low intensity cardio in, or maybe it's yoga and Pilates and things that are a little less intense. And that's a good time to focus on the fat burning, and to keep your energy levels up without depleting yourself is to do some of those more active, low intensity exercises. Okay, so the last part that I want to talk about is how our menstrual cycle then affects our mind. So week 1, estrogen is a natural mood lifter. It boosts us up. It makes us feel confident. We have zest for life. We are ready to try new things. So week 1 and week 2, our minds are on point. Estrogen helps us be more responsive, more witty. We can problem solve quickly. So week 1 and week 2, our minds are a good time to, crush our goals. They are a good time to be as productive as possible, to be efficient with your time and get as much done on your to-do list in weeks 1 and weeks 2. Now, there's an awesome app I'm going to talk to you guys about just after this little portion on the mind here that kind of dives in so that you know when these things are coming, and it has a little bit of humor to it, which is helpful. Okay, so the mind, week 3 and week 4, this is where progesterone reaches its peak and then both hormones drop together. This is when you start to, lack of a better word, you might feel a little lazy. You might be just wanting to stay at home. You're struggling to do the chores. You just want to watch TV. You barely even want to socialize. You don't really want to leave the house. And so you might find that planning for week 3 and week 4 is helpful in setting yourself up for success. So especially maybe that's meal prepping as much as you can so that throughout the week you don't have to think about what you're going to eat. It's also trying to get as many chores done in, week 1 and week 2 so that week 3 and week 4, you allow yourself that room to kind of just take care of yourself, de-stress, and chill out a little bit more. Also, week 4 is when, week 3 and week 4, you might find that you could cry at the drop of a hat. You might find that literally you might start crying for no reason. And this is because estrogen and progesterone are dropping together. So, don't worry about it. It's part of just your hormonal cycle, and it's what makes us more sensitive. So kudos to us. Okay, so now that we've chatted about all the different ways estrogen and progesterone can affect us, our nutrition, our working out and energy, and as well as our mind, I want to share with you guys about this app that I've been using. So there's a few. So there's one app called Clue. Clue is mostly just a tracking app. So it doesn't give you any information, but more so that for you, you can kind of see, and it's more like a journal. Now there's one called Hormone, am I going to say this right? It's like Hormone Astrology or Hormone Horoscope. Okay, so go check out Hormone Horoscope. This app is amazing. It was started by a woman who wanted to just start helping women be more in tune with how they felt every day, because it does affect even our finances. Progesterone and estrogen, depending on where they're at, week 3, you're more likely to make extravagant purchases, for example, because it makes you feel better. Week 1 and week 2, you might be more responsible and be more inclined to save. So this app, Hormone Horoscope, has really helped dive into, very general. Everybody has, it's like a horoscope, but everybody's a little bit different in their sensitivities to estrogen and progesterone, but I have found it to be really, really helpful, especially in, simple things like, okay, is this a day that I shouldn't beat myself up? Like, I really just feel like doing nothing and drinking coffee? Or is this a day where I'm feeling like I can crush life? I'm gonna get all my chores done. I'm gonna eat healthy. I'm gonna get an awesome workout in, etc. So, but it goes beyond that. It goes into how career, finances, sex, your libido, romance, if you're single or if you are with someone. So it dives in more so that you can kind of get an idea of what to maybe expect. If any of you meditate, I did that this morning. I haven't done that in a really long time, but This hormone horoscope is just kind of like meditation. You just are becoming aware. You don't have to do anything necessarily with this information, but by being more aware, we can be more proactive. We can make more conscientious decisions on our nutrition, working out, and how our mind is, or be more aware of how we might interact with people depending on where we're at in our menstrual cycle. So check out, again, just to recap, check out this book, Roar by Stacy Sims. I found it online. She's been a huge advocate for women in the sport and really tried to help bring some science into it. She is a scientist and has studied female physiology and how that might affect how that affects training, nutrition, energy, working out, all those things we discussed today. Sorry about if there's background noise. I don't have my headphones in. But yeah, so thanks so much for joining me. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment and I'd love to answer them, and I hope that you found this helpful today. So if you are in week 1 or week 2, what are you going to go do right now? Go crush all your to-dos. And if you're working out, lift heavier weights, build that muscle, and you already are going to crush eating healthy. If you're in week 3 and week 4, de-stress, do some yoga, meditate, calm yourself, and just focus on, getting through the day and be mindful of your reactions and your actions, and because you are a little more irritable potentially, or be mindful of your financial choices because you may be more susceptible to making a large purchase. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Coffee with Katie talk, and I look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you next week.